different harvest methods. So we did hand-harvested fruit, which was y'all's least favorite because it was 1, 3, 4. And those were picked off the tree when they were just beginning to ripen. Then we have our new and improved, the Pawpaw, not patent pending, but my husband would say that, net for the pawpaw trees over here, where the fruit would drop into the net. I'm so sorry, it's getting hot in here. And that we picked 176, which was all of your guys' favorite out of the nets. And the last set, 152, was simulated drop. So my lovely advisor, who you might have seen in the barn, dropped the fruit from very high down onto an AstroTurf rug, because we're not going to feed you fruit that's been picked off the floor of an orchard just for liability reasons and because we don't want to get anyone sick. So we simulated the drops. We left them for 24 hours. Yes.
Wait, so you simulated the drops, so you took them off the tree first and then you dropped them?
Yeah. So we picked ripe fruit and then we dropped them. We left them for 24 hours because that's an average amount of time. Did we leave? Maybe it was 48 hours. It might have been 2 days. Yes, I think we left them for 2 days to simulate that they'd been sitting on the ground for 2 days and they like degraded because the bruises and the ripening will continue. So the netted fruit was what you guys liked the best. And that overall is a very interesting finding, but it's in line with what we found previously. So just a little bit about why we've done this. We've done this before, and others have also come up with the same kind of thoughts that you have, that the hand harvested was pale, not as appealing, was a little bit more watery in there, and then the net captured was a darker yellow. The bitterness, which was very much pronounced in our first round of samples when we did this introductory taste panel. We did it with 16 people in my lab. It was very lovely of them to participate, but you said that it was very bitter. That bitterness was most likely from our method of processing. So we processed all of these samples with a RoboCube. So this is a commercial grade piece of equipment which can separate the seeds from the pulp very easily. It can take 100 pounds of fruit per hour, so it's really, really fast. We wanted to use the commercial pulper because we wanted that consistent, smooth texture, because we were looking for variance between the samples. So we were looking for what's happening between hand harvested and netted and the simulated drops. We weren't trying to look at cultivar differences or something else. But if we were trying to look at differences in pulping methods, we would have also used the hand pulped. So that's when you put it through a mesh bag and you squeeze it, which is mostly, if you're a home grower, what you do is you try to get that off, or you pick the seeds out by hand. There's also a smaller piece of equipment that I don't have a picture of, which is the Roma tomato pulper. And that can also give you a chunkier result. So if you're using it in ice cream, I'm not sure if you really want that super smooth texture, if you want some chunks in there. But for commercial practices or cheesecakes, you might want a nice smooth texture like you had in these samples. So we did a huge taste panel down in Columbus to test the differences between this, and we got over 100 students and faculty and staff down in OSU to taste. Here's a picture of me piping out all of these different samples, just like I did for you guys. Now, we had a slight problem, and if you, oh, I have the same. You can see here, these samples browned. So they've got a brown layer on that. That's the polyphenol oxidase. That's what makes bananas brown. That's what makes pawpaws brown. And we could either pipe out all the samples right there in front of everyone. Well, that would take a very, very long time. So, and it would give us inconsistent results, because if somebody waited to taste 152 for 10 minutes and didn't taste 134, and then tasted 134 first, that would have browned. So we decided we're going to pipe these all out and wait overnight. Give them at least an hour, and we gave them 8 hours to brown fully so that they would be consistent. Because we were looking for consistent samples to test this variation between the flavors and the aromas, not really how much they browned. But that brown does give a different flavor and texture to things. We also used we tried to reduce the amount of bitter in these samples by using waxing instead of blanching. So the first set of samples we did for the smaller taste panel, we used blanching for the fruit, which is where you put the fruit into boiling water for about 30 seconds. You then pull them out and put them in an ice bath. We found that imparts a little bit of a bitter flavor into the fruit. It's not very noticeable if you're doing hand pulping or using the Roma processor, but it definitely is there when you use the RoboCoupe. So for this we used waxing, where we used food grade cheese wax, dunked all the fruit into that, and then chilled them down, and then you push a rolling pin over top of them, and they squirt out the side. And it doesn't get as much of this, there's no skin remaining on that pulp. So that seemed to decrease the bitter, because you were the only one that talked about the bitter. And last time it was, everyone had a comment about the bitter. So I'm very happy to hear that. From that big taste panel, we found that we did 3 rounds of samples. So 5 is extremely light. No, 9 is extremely light. So the closer to 9 in the first and set. So the net captured was the most light in both the first and the second set, where simulated drops were a little bit more and hand were definitely at the bottom of the barrel here. So we implemented these. Wait a second. This is showing the same, that we did a just about right scale, and the net captured fruit again. The 5 is not nearly sweet enough, not way too dark, not fruity enough. So we found that the net captured was just right on the sweetness, just right on the color. It was really came out as the winner in this taste panel. So the why behind all of this was that we were looking for a more efficient way to capture fruit and to harvest fruit. Mark, back in 2020, I think, I saw him have a basic bare bones net setup where you use some shade cloth and some leftover electric fence posts to capture fruit in there. And I took that design and we improved it each year. The whole problem is that if you're collecting fruit off the ground, they're going to be as ripe as possible, and it's going to be easier. But having fruit hit the floor of the orchard increases the risk of contamination. And also, as Mark can tell you, bugs get into your fruit then. And every critter wants to come and eat your fruit. They want to come eat your fruit anyways. Some of them will be up your trees and try and break into your house to get pawpaws, but you don't, you can lock your doors. And we found, with the help of Mark and Lauren, that the nets were much more efficient in capturing the fruit. You can see here, you guys see the pointer? That might be easier. So the net captured trees, the efficiency here on the netted trees is much higher in, wait a second, this is seconds per pound. So in the netted trees, it's higher than in the hand harvested trees. So sorry, where are we going? Talked about the efficiency. You had a question?
Yes. Why are the netted trees on there twice? There's hand harvested fruits and retrieval of dropped fruits.
So these are the netted trees in Orchard A. The netted trees. These trees did not. I'm so sorry. This was a few years ago. The netted trees here were trees that they were retrieving dropped fruit from also, and how quickly they did. And then these trees were just hand harvested. Then they had nets underneath them in a orchard. So these netted trees were also the control trees were hand harvested. And then is that how this worked? I'm so sorry. It's been a few years.
You don't know that's all right. Because, I mean, obviously the controls would be the hand harvested and then the retrieval of dropped fruits. I just didn't understand why there's like two different sets of netted trees.
So in some of the netted trees, okay, this is how it works. So sorry. So we start, the first column, the big column here, is just the net captured fruit picked out of the nets. These are trees that the fruit was hand harvested from, but some of those fruit also had nets on them and some of them didn't. And the trees that didn't have nets on them, the control trees that were hand harvested, some of them also had drops. So that how efficient the dropped trees were was this amount. There's still, unfortunately, some of the fruit does come through the nets and drops to the ground. So that's where we're looking at that 20.
So the two columns then are like trees that had both, like that were you pick from the net and you pick from that. Okay.
Yes.
So you're really not comparing the netted trees versus the control trees. You're really comparing the two columns of hand harvest versus the single column of net cap.
Yes. So this efficiency here is quite. I'm so sorry I'm in your way.
That's okay.
Is quite low. The only thing that's comparative is how quick you can pick things off the ground. They do take some maintenance to, let's go back to that picture here. They do take some maintenance to upkeep, but they are great. As long we put landscape fabric underneath the trees, and that helped reduce the weeds because they're a little hard to get a weed whacker underneath. It's doable, but it's a pain in the butt. So putting landscaping fabric underneath them will reduce the weed management. Instead of using shade cloth, we used heavy duty deer fencing, what we upgraded to. And those PVCs these aren't joints that we actually bent the PVC with a heat gun so that we would reduce our cost down. We started putting these together in 2021, and the cost of things was much less than it is now. So PVC has gone up from this. So we could probably continue to reduce the amount of joints a little bit, but you do want those joints there so you can put T's in and 4 ways to go across the net fully. Now this is really based on a question of what your market is going to do and where you're going to sell your fruit. If you're just a backyard grower with 16 trees that you're trying to gain a bunch of fruit for yourself, and for your friends, you don't have to worry about where the market is.